day. So welcome everybody to day 2 of our 3-session workshop on navigating policy with data to leave no one behind. It's a great pleasure to have you join us again here today. My name's Gemma Van Houderen. I'm the Director of the Statistics Division at ESCAP, and I'm here with most of my colleagues from the ESCAP Stats Division, as well as with our development partners from UNECE, ADB and Paris 21, as well as many other development partners that are based in the Asia Pacific region. I'm going to kick off today with a bit of a recap of yesterday. Some welcome to anybody who's new today, and do a bit of a recap before we hand over to Armand to step you through the next session. Let me just share with you, for those of you who are new to this MS Teams, a reminder that where along the top of your screen there, you'll see a few icons. The really important icons to keep in mind are the chat box, the little chat icon, which is the second from the left, which is where you can read questions and answers that are being posted in the chat function. You can also use that to post your own questions or to share information. The third icon along from the top is where you can put your hand up if you'd like to speak, and we will come to you to take your question or to take your comment. And the fourth button along is the 3 dots where you can check out your microphone, and you can also look at your speaker if you're having difficulty with sound or anything. If you do have connectivity issues, we do recommend you keep the video off. That can sometimes help, but we do actually quite like in these workshops to have your video on, because it's nice, much nicer to see you than it is to just see a wall of blank screens. And then the microphone box is next to that. And we do encourage, if you could please keep your microphone on mute so that the sound quality is good for the speaker. And the technical team at ESCAP will turn you on mute if you forget, but it'd be great if you could also remember yourself. So we're now up to 51 people in this talk, which is great. It's great to see there. We've got Kemu back from Fiji. We've got Samoa with us today. So really pleased to thank you, our colleagues in the Pacific, for staying up late and joining us late in the afternoon. And very good morning to our people in South Asia, where it's quite early. It's still morning over there. So let me just quickly share my screen here and give a brief recap of where we got to yesterday, and trying to work out how to share my screen here now. PowerPoint Live. Let me see if this works. And I don't know what you can see, Goy. Can you see a big screen?
Yes, I can see it. Yeah, it's a big screen. Yes.
Big screen,
oh,
great.
No,
okay.
I think so, yes.
Okay, so it's a big screen, great. So as I said, we're just first of all kick off with a bit of a welcome, introductions and recap from yesterday. Yesterday we had a really good session where we focused very much on which part of the national statistical system in your country is most in need of improvement. And I was very excited to see we had high interest in yesterday's session. Our audience numbers peaked at 99. So today I'm really hoping that we get over 100. If you don't have any of your colleagues in this workshop at the moment, you'd like to reach out to them, invite them along, because it'd be great if we could hit the 100 mark today. We also had several excellent questions coming from countries interacting with each other, with the development partners, really good questions around the different ways that we can strengthen national statistical systems, reaching out with partners, different types of big data, and different tools that are available. We started the day with a bit of a word cloud, asking what part of your national statistical system is most in need of. It came up with a lot of great ideas, a lot of great priorities for you. Data integration, disaster-related statistics, and big data, as well as administrative data, were the 4 standout comments that came from the Mentimeter tool. And in my experience, these 4 priorities actually have something in common. And it's really the institutional and governance arrangements for data sharing and use. For data integration, this is clearly about integrating different data sources. They could be just data sources within your statistical office, like maybe your census and your survey data. But really the power of data integration comes from integrating geospatial data, administrative data, other data sources that are in the broader national statistical system. Disaster-related statistics are often in a country produced by national mapping agencies or national disaster management agencies. So they are a really key partner in national statistical systems. And so this is really about institutional and governance arrangements in your statistical system to be able to deliver priority disaster statistics for your citizens and for your governments. Big data, as we all know, a lot of people are defining big data mainly as digital data coming from the Internet of Things, from digital devices. And often these big data sources are held by private sector companies, or they're held by, again, national mapping agencies. So again, partnerships and relationships and governance arrangements with those data providers are really key. And then for most of these partners in the statistical system, administrative data is what they hold. And so how does the National Stats Office get access to and share data from administrative data systems? So I just wanted to highlight that, these were the 4 areas that were identified as most in need of improvement in your statistical systems. And I think these all go to the heart of institutional and governance arrangements, particularly around data sharing and around data use for official statistics. We heard yesterday, and Ricky gave a very good summary at the end of the day, about the fact that there is a lot of tools that are available from across the development system to be able to help you strengthen these areas in your statistical systems. And one of the questions which I'm sure is on many of your minds is which tool suits your needs the best? And we're going to have several sessions today with our development partners where we're going to have an opportunity to really understand some of these tools in greater detail. Because it really, your situation, these tools are designed to help you, but you've got to understand what's your situation, which one's best for your purpose. We also heard there was plenty of great things to say about national statistical systems in our region in Asia Pacific, and I was really pleased to hear this. And I think despite COVID-19, despite the impact on the operations of our systems, we really are not only surviving, but we seem to be thriving in this environment. We heard COVID-19 has really put in focus the need for more timely and granular statistics. It's created new partnerships, and it's created a really opportunity for statistical officers to make use of administrative data and big data sources for improving not only their statistics, but for building partnerships and strengthening governance arrangements across their system. And finally, we also heard big plans. We had 5 excellent speakers. Well, we had 4 excellent speakers yesterday from across our region, and our colleagues from Kyrgyzstan shared with us their presentation about big plans for strengthening national statistical systems in our region. And again, the message we gave to you yesterday is the development system is here to help you, and we're really looking forward to being able to do that and to help you make a difference. Today's session, again, I'm just trying to change my slide. Today's session, next week's session, next week on the 20th, on Thursday, this is where we want to hear from you. So this is where we're going to be inviting you to make country interventions and to share with us. Sorry, I'll just check if someone could please go on mute. I have a little bit of background sound coming in here. Thank you very much. So, thank you very much. Thank you. So welcome to those of you who have just joined us. So next week, our session will be very much focused on hearing from you, and we're going to invite you to give us country interventions. And this requires a bit of homework. We flagged this with you yesterday, and we're just flagging it again now, and we'll do it again towards the end of the day. What we're inviting you to do is to select one of the 4 commitments that we've been focusing on here around national development strategies, national monitoring and indicator frameworks, around institutional governance arrangements for data sharing and making use of frontier technologies, and a commitment around advocacy and communication investment with users. And we're going to invite you to select one or more or all 4 of these commitments that you think needs most strengthening in your country, and then give us a very brief, and we really want very brief, 200 words or less, statement of what the problem is there. And it could be something simple like our legislation does not allow data sharing, or our partners, there's an issue with our partners, or some form of a problem statement. And then a very brief statement, again, 200 words or less. What would success look like to you? So what change would you like to see after taking action? So success to you might be a revision to your legislation, or the establishment of we heard yesterday from Mongolia, the establishment of integrated data infrastructure for data integration. So what, in your view, would be the change that you'd like to most see after taking action? And this, combined with these problem statement and the success factor, if you could share this with us through this Google form as soon as possible, definitely before next week on the 18th, we will then use these country interventions to prepare for the 3rd session of our workshop on the 20th, where we'll hear directly from you and have an opportunity to gauge the interest in development partner support and working with you to strengthen your system over the next 2 to 4 years. But today, the focus of today, let me just move my slide forward. The focus of today then is to do more of a deep dive into technical assistance. So yesterday we focused very much on the tools that were available for supporting you to strengthen your statistical system. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about the technical assistance that's available. And here we're going to hear from both the Maldives as well as Samoa about their country experiences with technical assistance. Now, this is really quite important, because to be able to provide you with this assistance, particularly at the moment during COVID-19, our modalities of delivering technical assistance might require the local hiring of a national consultant. It might require more support from your office to facilitate workshops. We might have different ways of providing technical assistance. And it's really important, I think, to hear from not only Samoa and Maldives, but any other country who'd like to share their experience on what it is like to receive technical assistance from ESCAP, ADB, Paris 21, UNECT, actually anybody in the development system. And throughout today's session, we will have multiple opportunities for you to engage directly with us, with all the development partners, not only to ask any question you might have about technical assistance, but also about the tools that we shared information about yesterday. The presentations from yesterday are up on the website, and also we'll be sharing with you today's presentations and recording of the meeting as well. But really today is an opportunity, if you're thinking about filling in this form for next week, if you're thinking about your country intervention and your problem statement and the impact you're looking for, now's an opportunity to ask a few questions, get some input from us, so that we really can shape a good outcome for you over the next 2 to 4 years as part of this project. So with that, I'm really have a very brief introduction today, and wanted to really just share with you what's the purpose of today. I'm just trying to stop my screen here and go back to the main presentation. So let me stop there and invite if there's any questions or any recap or any reflections that you may have had on yesterday's session at the workshop. I'll just check the chat box. Hopefully we have Samoa can hear us now. Is there any questions that anyone would like to raise, or any reflections on yesterday that I may have missed? If not, I think I'm very happy to hand over to my colleagues in the Stats Division. First up, we're going to invite Armand to give us a bit of a run through of technical assistance that's available. Armand, thank you. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma. Good afternoon, morning, colleagues. Welcome back to our workshop. So the first session after opening is a half-an-hour session, which is the second part of what we had yesterday. Yesterday, Jan provided an overview of the tools by agencies, and today he's going to provide us with an overview of technical assistance available to support meeting those four commitments. And then Jan will be joined by colleagues from ADB. I believe Art is with us today, and Steve from ECE and Philip from Paris 21 for a QA session. So let's start with Jan's presentation. Jan, over to you.
Thank you, Armand. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So, yes, in terms of technical assistance modalities, we have started with 3 technical assistance projects, and this workshop also serves a bit as a kickoff of these technical assistance projects. I'll talk more about that on the forthcoming slides. But in addition to technical assistance projects, we have regional advisory services available where countries can at any time on an ad hoc basis ask us for advice. So those regional advisory services are available in the area of environment statistics and SDG statistics. Moving to the technical assistance projects now, as said, we are embarking on 3 projects. The first one is called Navigating Policy in Asia and the Pacific with Data to Leave No One Behind. That is funded by the United Nations own resources to what is called the development count, and specifically the 13th tranche of that development count. I will refer now to that project as DA13. We will be able to support 5 countries under that project. Tools that can be used under that project is all of the 25 in principle that I discussed yesterday. The end date of that of the DA13 project is the end of 2024. Then the second project is called Strengthening Follow-up and Review for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in ESCAP member states submitting voluntary national reviews during 2021 and 2022. We like long project titles. That project is funded by China through the China ESCAP Cooperation Program, or CECP. We are able to support 5 countries under this project with the national SDG tracker that we mentioned yesterday. This project will end at the end of 2022. That also applies to the last project called Integrating Policy and Data to Leave No One Behind in Selected Countries in Asia and the Pacific, which is funded through the Korea ESCAP Cooperation Fund, or KECF. We are able to support 4 countries under this project with the EPIC, the Every Policy is Connected tool. Under the DA13 project, what we are able to do in terms of support is provide grants to NSOs to organize national workshop, hire local consultants, and cover oversight services. We're also able to provide international consultants for documenting the national projects and sharing international experiences in national workshops. We will facilitate national consultations to agree on priority commitments and launch project activities. And we will also facilitate participation in a project closing workshop, so towards the end of 2024, to critically review progress and consolidate lessons across project countries. Furthermore, we are able to facilitate contributions towards knowledge documents of experiences and lessons drawn for the wider Asia-Pacific statistical community. And we will facilitate participation in a regional dialogue on navigating policy with data to leave no one behind, to showcase results to the Asia-Pacific statistical community. This regional dialogue will be held back-to-back with the closing workshop that I just mentioned. Under the CECP, the China-funded project, we can facilitate participation in an expert group meeting to discuss SDG progress methodologies. We are able to provide expert support to produce a national SDG progress assessment and report based on the ESCAP SDG progress assessment methodology. And we are able to facilitate participation in a regional workshop, sharing results and experiences on application of the SDG progress assessment methodology. This regional workshop will then be held towards the end of 2022. On the with regards to the Korean-funded project, we are able to provide international consultants to facilitate national workshops to train target groups on integrating policy with data through enhancing user-producer dialogues. We provide follow-up support to complete the implementation of user-producer dialogues. We will facilitate the documentation of good practices and production of knowledge products, and we will facilitate again the participation in a regional workshop towards the end of 2022 to share outcomes with other countries in the Asia-Pacific region. So that was in a nutshell on the technical assistance that we have available at the moment. Armand, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. Colleagues, if you have questions, please post your questions in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and ask your question directly. And we also have colleagues from ADB, from ECE, and Paris 21 who will join Jan to answer your questions if it is related to other agencies and activities. There is one hand, Rizwan Bashir from Pakistan. Mr. Rizwan, please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, hi. My question is about this assistance from Korea. Right now, we are working on the rebasing of quantum index, which is like industrial statistics used for the measuring growth, right? So, and it involves a lot of administrative data and collecting data about establishment, and from these sources is quite a difficult task in Pakistan. So in that context, what kind of assistance could be provided by ESCAP through these partners? If there is any possibility, I mean, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rizwan Bashir. Jan, do you want to answer the question?
Yes, so this, if I understood correctly, it was about assistance with an industrial production index, right? I cannot immediately imagine a particular tool, even though there are 25 that would where this would fall under. This is maybe a candidate for regional advisory services that we have available, where as said, these kind of more ad hoc requests can be addressed. So you're by all means invited to get in touch, and so that we can talk a little bit more about that. I could imagine that. Oh, Gemma, you raising your hand physically?
Yes, Gemma.
Yeah,
go
thanks
ahead.
very much. Yeah, thanks, Jan. Thanks, Armand. I'm thinking here because we've got 3 projects that are starting off here, and really from a country point of view, it sort of doesn't really matter which project we pick. But one of our projects is very much designed around picking an area that where you'd like to strengthen. And if I heard correctly, even it was about access to the administrative data that is needed to produce the industrial statistics production index. So I do think that one of, this would be definitely within scope of either the regional advisor that Jan mentioned there, but also that the development account project that we have, where looking at institutional governance arrangements for data sharing is definitely within scope of that project. Thanks, Jan. Thanks, Armand.
Thank you, Gemma. So colleague from Pakistan, please go ahead and fill in the online form as Jan said. The support is not limited to these 3 projects. These are the 3 new projects. That's why we are focusing on, but there are other areas of support. Statistics Division provides support on economic and environmental statistics and has regional advisory support as well. So if you get in touch with us, we can get back to you on what kind of support can be provided on that. Thank you very much. I don't see any question in the chat box or any hands. Yes, the idea is to improve IIP, confirming what Jan said. So thank you so much. I don't see any questions. I think we can move to the next. We can move to the. Yes, there is one question here from Mahesh Chand Pradhan. Will technical assistants have scope in establishing statistical business registers? Jan.
Yes, probably here the same thing applies. This is something that we can have a look at. Rike is raising her hand now. Thank you, Rike. Rike is heading, as you probably all know, our economic and environment statistics work.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jan and Aman, and thanks for the question on SPR, but also the IPI. As many of you will know, we have a regional program on economic statistics that outlines priorities, and one of the topics that is on the table for this year is actually statistical business registers. And ESCAP is currently working with ADB to put together some, let's say, seminar on statistical business registers. So there's definitely an agreed priority on this topic. In terms of very specific in-country technical assistance, I just referred to the remarks already made that there's a possibility for regional advisory services from ESCAP, but probably also from some of our partners. And I just find that maybe we could give Art the floor to just say a little bit on some of the work that's being done also by ADB. ADB and ESCAP, we are working quite closely on this particular area of statistics. So with the permission of the chair here, Aman, can we maybe ask Art to say a few words?
Please, it's very flexible.
Thank you very much, Arman and Enrique. Yeah, indeed, ADB has been working very closely with ESCAP and also with a number of our developing member countries in terms of establishing the statistical business registers. So we have a system in place, and we have collaborated quite closely to a number of countries. In terms of the question on possibility, just want to re-echo what Ricky mentioned. Perhaps this is something we would appreciate hearing more about in terms of the details of the kind of technical assistance that you would need. And we will definitely check with ESCAP and also check within our team what kind of technical support we can provide. Thanks, Ricky. Thanks, Arman.
Thanks, Rike and Art. Colleagues from agencies, if you wanted to answer any of the questions, please feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself. I see Steve, because I may not be aware which of these areas you're active. Steve, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yes, just to mention also in UNECE, business registers has been one of our main topics for many years. And we have, in normal times, we have an expert group that meets every 2 years. And usually we have some sort of back-to-back training workshop for countries that are newer to the topic. And in the alternate years, there's also the Wiesbaden group, UN City Group on business registers, which has a similar sort of format. So there are a couple of international resources. We've also recently published a couple of handbooks, one a manual on statistical business registers, and another a guide on using business register data for entrepreneurship and business demography purposes. So they're also available on our website. And then finally, I would say that there are a couple of options for anybody wanting to start with a business register from more or less zero. And over the years, both New Zealand and more recently Norway have developed a generic starter business register system that can be implemented in countries. And I know that particularly Norway has been working with Kyrgyzstan on this over recent years. And I think several other countries have also been looking at taking one of these more or less off-the-shelf business register systems and using that to get started. So I hope that may be some use to the participants. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Steve. So this answers also the next question on the business registers. There is one question, Jan, from Mr. Fayaz from Iran, asking about what kind of support available for initializing data sharing platforms. I think this is related to also the 13 on the data ecosystem support. Yes, so I would definitely put that in the Google form. That is definitely something that we will have a look at. Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Jan. Thanks, Mr. Fayaz. I think, as Jan said, I also encourage you to go ahead with the online form. The type of supports that we are providing are in the form of implementation of the standards such as SDMX, and also supporting countries in adopting new technologies to establish their data platforms for data sharing. Okay, I don't see any other question here. If that's okay with everyone, we can move to the next session. Of course, again, we will come back to all of these topics again. We will have a very interesting session on presentations by countries as well as by agencies again. So we will have again a Q&A sessions on this. With that, I would like to conclude this session. Thank you very much, Jan, Steve, Art, and colleagues from Paris 21. I think I can move directly to the next session, Gemma, right?
I think so, Aman. Yes, just move straight through. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the next session, we will have exciting presentations by countries. 2 chief statisticians from our region will be presenting. First, we will have one presentation by Ms. Shahuda Aishat, who is Chief Statistician from Maldives National Statistical Office. And the next presentation will be given by Ms. Alimwa Malufono Toa. I hope my pronunciation is correct. Fono is Chief Statistician of Samoa Bureau of Statistics. Both will be presenting their experience partnering with agencies to strengthen their national statistical system in different areas. So with that, I would like to invite Shahuda to give her presentation, and I believe my colleagues will share her slides.
May I check if Ms. Shahuda is here already?
Yeah, I'm here.
Shahuda, I saw.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Hi, Shahuda. Yes, we can
Hello.
hear you. I see you very clearly.
Thank you very much. So you will show the presentation from your end, yeah? Yeah.
Right, that's the presentation.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this opportunity for presenting our experience with the countries. In the case of Maldives, we were part of this regional program of economic statistics, whereby we were able to conduct this review of our national statistical system. It was mostly an external review. External review, and then it was done together with UN Statistics Division partnership as well, but ESCAP was leading this exercise, and we also had a Mongolian statistical office, Ms. Padma, also as part of the team. Can you move the slides, please? Yeah, thank you. So this was the main stages that we had during this review. It took quite a while, around 2 years from the beginning to complete this whole exercise. And we had some sessions where we had communicated through email together with the team. And first we developed this questionnaire that was more from the global assessment questionnaire at the time. So Chris from ESCAP was working with us, and then we developed this questionnaire, and there were some modifications that we did to align with the Maldives context. So the questionnaire was developed, and we had this mission from the review team who came and met with the stakeholder agencies and try to complete the questionnaire and gather all the related information from the stakeholders so that they can have a better understanding. So after that, it was mostly the questions were completed. We did the follow-up of the questionnaire and everything. And later, afterwards, there was another mission that we had to review the findings. Once the questionnaire was completed, there was a validation session that was done. So after the validation, we again send it back to all the members of the team who were consulted during the session. We had the government agencies, also data users, UN agencies. So it was quite a wide consultation that was done among about the National Statistical System, in addition to the NSS, NBS and other partner agencies who are producers of the official statistics. Also the users were consulted, and at the policy level also we had discussions. So it was quite an extensive exercise that was done. But in this review, we were focusing more on the economic statistics because it was done as part of the regional program. But the institutional aspect of the statistical system, the human resources, the legal system, so those parts, the enabling environment, those were of the focus as well. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this already I have highlighted this area. So the coordination within the National Statistical System, we have a National Statistics Coordinating Committee in place. So that was one of the coordination mechanisms. So how can we institutional strengthening, what needs to be done, and what are the issues in the organization structure. At the time we had a different organization structure. So there was a lot of scrutiny, and we went through the whole exercise. And some of the revision or recommendations were given on how to improve this as well during the exercise. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is how in overall the National Statistical System, we have a decentralized statistical system. So different agencies like tourism ministries producing data for tourism, fisheries and agriculture. So it's like, and in the atolls, we don't have statistical agencies as such in our outer atolls. But in the National Bureau of Statistics, we have some statistical officers in few islands where we collect the CPI. So other than that, it's more of the each ministry, everybody is coordinating with the island. So the local level is a different in a way. In some other countries, we have statistical in this local level statistics officers already in place. So we had this mandate to produce the basic statistics like the population census, major household surveys like household income and expenditure survey, economic surveys. Then in the NBS, we produce the national accounts, price statistics, poverty. And then we have to coordinate the National Statistical System, like statistics plans. We have NSDS already in place, the first NSDS. And we have to do the standardization and coordination of the whole. So that is basically our function within the whole National Statistical System. Next one. Next slide, please. Yeah. So these are some of the key issues that were identified during the review. that a comprehensive regulatory framework is important. We have a statistical regulation, but we don't have a law. And there were some areas of statistics in the regulation that need to be strengthened. So it was like a lot of time was taken to review the legislative framework and also looking at the generic law of the EU and ECE. So there's a lot of recommendations on how to align it with the fundamental principles of official statistics more, and the need for engagement with the users. That was something that was identified as well, because in our country we don't have a proper mechanism that is institutionalized as a user group. So NBS, we have some difficulties in exercising our mandate in getting access to detailed microdata, still administrative data quality checking. So these were some things that were identified as issues that need to be addressed. And for the surveys also, we plan for a lot of surveys, but because of the government budget funding issues, like some of the funding does not materialize, so it doesn't go actually according to the plans that we make. And the training needs of the statistics bureau as well as the wider national statistical system is something still we need a lot of support for that, because we don't have a proper mechanism at the university level. Also, there's no statistics still offered, although we have been working a lot in trying to formulate such a mechanism. So there's no proper mechanism to train the people who are working in the statistics, and the dissemination policy, release calendar. So those are the areas that need to be improved, and also to develop a national indicator framework. That was one of the suggestions that were provided. So these were some of the key areas that were identified and that we are working on to improve. Next slide, please. Yeah, and some of the key lessons that we learned was that a review should be conducted regularly. So it's important because things are changing all the time, and identify strengths and weaknesses in the national system to enhance the system to meet the current needs. So that is something for the future. Although we have done the survey, this assessment in 2017, like we feel that still a lot of new things have come up, and there's a new areas that we can still benefit from doing again another review. And the engagement of all stakeholders across multiple levels, it's one of the huge success factors. Even though we try to engage the data users and the questionnaires were sent, still we found that some of the people did not respond as much as we would like. So all this, the political will is very important. In our case, we had some issues, some difficulties with the political system as well. The government had some issues at the time, and then we were not able to launch the report and take it to the level that we wanted to. And the review needs to cover all aspects. Although the RPES project was focused on the economic, but we wanted to highlight that social as well as environmental statistics and this integration. So all these aspects needs to be incorporated in a comprehensive review. Maybe it is so in other global reviews, but in the case as I highlighted, we were focusing more on the economic area, but institutional and the legal environment and then the whole national statistical system, those are very important, and that went, I think, was really well done. Next one, please. Yeah, and then after that, again, with the UN ESCAP, our team, two of our colleagues, Shazna here and then Mushfiga, they were involved, and with Rike and the team, they did this documentations. So the whole process was documented in this review of the National Statistical System, and it is something I think that will be useful for us as a documentation as well if we want to go for the future, even for another country who is trying to conduct such a review, it is something that they can look at in addition to the detailed review report. Next slide, please. Yeah. So some key progresses since the review. So we have worked on the, after the review, we have produced a statistical law, reviewed that draft, and it is submitted to the Parliament after incorporating all the recommendations that were provided during this review, which we found is very helpful. And the recommendation is currently now being used as one of the review for the NSDS that we are compiling right now. The second NSD of Maldives 2021 to 2030. So the economic and the institutional, all these aspects will be incorporated into this. But we did do additional reviews that was also highlighted in some areas in this review, like the administrative data assessment was done. Also, we did some assessments on social sector key areas, and gender statistics assessment we did together with the Paris 21, and we are highlighting a lot on this integrating gender into the national statistical system and how it can be incorporated into the NSDS that we are now developing. So the improvements in national accounts and price statistics. So many of this that was highlighted has been actually improved after we did the review. So if anybody is interested, you can access the review whole report using this our website Statistics Maldives link. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shahuda, for your very interesting presentation. And I'm sure this is something that every country can benefit from, the lessons you learned from this review, because I think there's no country that this is not relevant to them. Therefore, it's extremely important. I suggest that we take questions at the end of next presentation. So Shahuda, you also can reflect on some of the questions on in the chat room already posted by Rike. And other colleagues, if you have questions for Shahuda, please post in the chat room. We will come back after Fono's presentation. Thank you very much. So the next presentation is from Samoa Bureau of Statistics. Fono, over to you.
Can you share my presentation, please?
Yes, my colleagues will share in a second. Yeah, it's good. You have it now.
Thank you, Ahmad, and good evening to everyone. I'm sorry, it's evening in Samoa. Okay, the declaration is one of the many initiatives that statistical communities at the national level, regional and global level have been pushing for many years for continuous investments in statistical developments, capacity building, given the multitude of technological changes, digital innovations, and also new emerging issues such as the COVID pandemic. Next slide, please. Next slide. So for Samoa, there have been a lot of I think one of the barriers in the development of reaching out to our end users is there's always this barrier between the data producers and policy makers. So despite the many meetings that we've had over the years and also meeting with the stakeholders, we always noted a gap between what we produce and what the policy makers are doing. So when we attended the ESCAP, one of the seminars they had in Bangkok, I think way back in 2017, this new tool, every policy is connected, or EPIC tool, was introduced, and I think we jumped into that opportunity way back because we knew that that was something we were looking for, to actually bring together the producers and users of statistics. So the tool was first introduced in Samoa in 2018. We have 14 sectors of development, And this was in collaboration with ESCAP, UN Women, and was later joined by our regional arm, which is Secretariat for Pacific Communities. So after several workshops we've had with the team, we finally had the Samoa tourism sector, which was the first, one of the first sectors that their old sector plan was due, and they are developing a new plan. So they decided to adopt this to actually review their old sector plan, and in the hope to develop a new plan for 2021 and in the future. So I'll just highlight some of the advantages of the tool that we found and which caught the attention of the Samoa tourism sector and also our office, and we are still working with other sectors and hoping to bring more policymakers or more sectors to use this tool because it's very useful. So the advantage of the tool that we actually found was we were able to identify the issues of the existing policy or strategy for actions, and then using this tool is different from other tools because it had 29 core concepts in which the planners and users can actually use to identify the issues in their existing policies. So not only identifying the issues, but it helps them to identify the actions which will help them to actually mitigate those issues. The tool also, there's also a stage in that tool that will help the users to actually link those actions to existing data to monitor their plan. If they don't have it, then we can you can actually look at global data, make use of global data as well, to see if it's related to the plan or some issues in the plan. And if there's none, then there's always an option to develop new data. There are also guiding steps in that tool which will help to go through the whole process. And another advantage is if we use this tool, then it will be able to monitor the progress of your plan as you move through the years. So for us, the tool itself was quite a learning experience for statisticians and users to come together, sit down, look through the sector plans and see how we relate, especially the data that we collect through census and surveys, because it becomes a business model to us to have surveys and census. Every year we do that, but we actually don't know where they are used. So the EPIC tool actually helped to bring us together in one table. We sat down and we actually went through those plans and try and link what we are producing to their plans, and also gave us the opportunity for the planners to also identify the data gaps that they think we are not able to collect to monitor their plans. So there's a lot of advantages, and I'm sure that Ahmad will help the others, and we can also share the experience with other NSOs. Next, please. So we all know that in the Pacific Islands, climate change is a real big issue, and it's a priority to to many of us living in small islands. So during our management meetings, we've been looking at areas that we wanted to develop, and some of these areas linked to climate change, not directly, but it's such a complex and big topic. But we wanted to focus small and hopefully expand in the future. So some of the relevant trainings and projects with ESCAP and also the CA donor partners and the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources, we actually link indirectly or directly to climate change. We've been able to take advantage of energy accounts training and also water accounts training. It was the first time we actually did water accounts in 2017 and managed to put together our publication in 2018 for the years 2016 to 2017, and we also published the 2017 to 2018 water accounts. We also have other projects ongoing, like the Samoa tourism accounts. We completed the pilots and we are waiting for the next step. We are also participating in the ocean accounts. We are waiting. There's a scoping report is in progress, and we are hoping for the next step very soon. And we just completed disaster statistics training that 5 of our staff managed to enroll online. And we are thankful that there is still opportunity out there that our staff can take advantage of using online training. So if we, in our second voluntary national report on SDG, you will see some of our environment and disaster related statistics reported in that. But we are happy to pursue this area because it's very important for us in the small islands. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, thank you. I think this has been the topic for many years back now. I think it's becoming old now, but we've been able to have partnerships with ESCAP, UNITA, UNSP, SPC, in trying to develop an SDG indicator framework for Samoa. We are a key member of our national SDG task force, and the significance of our membership into this SDG task force, like I mentioned before, it was an opportunity for us to actually understand the needs from our end users, and especially the SDG data needs. It was also an opportunity for us to actually link what we are developing to the SDG indicators itself, and also identify data gaps from in our current work, and also from other stakeholders, not just us, but also from our other stakeholders. And we managed to come together and identify where the gaps are, especially for SDG indicators. So from this linking exercise, we managed to develop an SDG indicator framework so that Samoa can monitor their own SDGs. And it was the first SDG framework that we came up with. And the good news is this framework helped to actually assisted in our second voluntary national report, which was launched in July of 2019. And this framework is now a living document. We are updating it as we get new data. But we are also using this to actually monitor all other international conventions, such as the Human Rights Convention, which we are currently working on right now, and also the CEDAW, CRPD, and many other conventions. So the purpose was different from the beginning, but now you see the benefits of actually having something that you can rely on to monitor all other frameworks. Next slide, please. So this is a new project that we've been working in partnership with ESCAP, UNDP, and also our local stakeholders. The report is completed and it's available on our official website, noted there. But briefly, the matrix listed the existing social protection indicators in Samoa from our stakeholders, especially agencies that are responsible for the distribution of several social benefits that are now available to our people from the government, like the old age pension, free education for primary and secondary school children. We also have free medication for pregnant mothers and children below 15 years of age. So actually, before we worked on this, these indicators were fragmented like agencies responsible for those benefits, they kept to their own data set. But when we worked on this project, we finally realized that there's so many out there that we are not aware of. So it was a very good opportunity for us to actually bring together this very important information, and the long-term vision. I think this vision is not just for Samoa, but I think it's a global vision. Is actually to support our wonderful population so that no one is left behind, and many people are living with disabilities, because right now in Samoa they don't have any benefits, and also the carers, they are not entitled to any benefits at all. The unemployed, low-income earners. So those are the type of vulnerable groups that could be the matrix could help in the future. And also, and hopefully when the time is right, we hope that the matrix will support funding proposal to governments and also to donors who may be able to contribute in the future. So it doesn't matter when this will happen. I think what we really enjoyed was actually putting this together to help all our other UN agencies in Samoa. Next, please. Because of time, I will now just I'm just listing our ongoing partnerships and a lot of technical assistance that we have been able to we managed to work with and to improve different aspects of the social statistics system, and also our own Bureau of Statistics, our own work. Because under the Bureau of Statistics, we have three major divisions, functions there. We have the statistics, we have the serial registration, and there's also a new one, which is the digital, the national ID division. So there are three big functions that I am responsible for. So right now we are working with the World Bank on our national digital identification system. So far, we've completed our strategic implementation plan for 3 years. We've also completed the technical and functional design of the digital system. And we are now working on the legislative framework, which will also touch upon strengthening the civil registration system, because both this system has a very strong connection, and we are hoping the both system will be strengthened in the near future. So we are working on the national identification bill that will also cover the civil registration changes in the civil registration system. We just finished the training with UNFPA. We are working on transformative agenda for women, a new agenda for UNFPA 2018 to 2022, and there's a lot of new methodologies that we are hoping to improve as we move into the future. Also, for your information, we are also working with IMF, BIFTEC. They are also helping us to update methodology for our national accounts to eventually move from GDP income approach to GDP expenditure approach. Also, we are working now with UNICEF on Mix Plus. It's in progress, and we are hoping to start this in the second half of 2021. With FAO, we are in conversation. We are currently writing our agriculture census report right now, which is the census we just completed in 2020. And when that is ready, we are hoping that FAO will help give us a second opinion on our analysis. For your information, we are already in progress with developing our second statistics strategy. The first one was from 2011 to 2021. Now it will be completed by June of this year, and we are hoping to move to the new statistics strategy for 2021-2026. I should have mentioned that this partnership was available under our partnership with the Australian Bureau of Statistics. under their program on the leadership program for government statisticians in the Pacific states. We do this annually, and so this was, we managed to negotiate assistance under the same project. Next one, please. So another project that we are also in conversation with is with ADB in relation to the project on strengthening economic statistics for measuring progress towards SDGs. And the conversation is around our next household income and expenditure survey by 2023. We've already had consultations with the UN Women here in Samoa on the project of Building Back Better, which it's already started, but we're just moving in to see what we can do in the second half, because we are really busy with our population and housing census to be conducted in November of this year. Also in progress is our funding proposal to DFAT Australia to support our Pacific group on disability statistics. This is the new group that we just put together last year, and it is we volunteer to coordinate this group for the Pacific in partnership with SPC, UN Washington Disability Group, the Pacific Disability Forum, and all our NSOs in the Pacific Islands are all parts of this group. So we are coordinating this group, and we are having a meeting sometimes by tomorrow. So moving forward, next one, please. Next slide, please. So moving forward, I believe there's a lot of available frameworks from different technical and donor partners out there. So NSOs, it's just a matter of reaching out and select the relevant areas from different frameworks for use in your own office to improve your statistical systems. I know that working in collaboration and sharing expertise with technical and our statistical NSOs is very important. We keep on working together and sharing knowledge and to improve our own systems. I think for our ESCAP and all our technical and donor partners, I think we need to keep on building our capacity of the staff and also sharing of expertise. It's very important for our work if we have to move forward. And finally, I must say that the declaration on navigating policy with data to leave no one behind it's just a guide to develop or improve all aspects of statistical systems. But I think the benefits really depend on your usage of the declaration. So that's it from Samoa. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Fono. Very interesting presentation. You shared good examples of partnership and technical assistance useful for many countries. I personally had the pleasure to be part of your team in implementing EPIC, and I must say it is one of the examples that every country in the region benefits from this kind of partnership, because the reason why we have the tool at the moment is because we work with Samoa Bureau for Statistics and Samoan government, and together develop the tool in different phases. So this kind of partnerships can benefit the entire region. The chat room is very active. Some questions are not necessarily for the presenters. Try to answer them. There are two questions for Shahuda asked by Rike. Shahuda, do you want to? I saw that you tried to respond in the chat room, but if you would like to elaborate, please go ahead. And colleagues, please post your questions for both Fono and Shahuda in the chat room, or raise your hand if you wanted to ask your question. Shahuda?
Okay, thank you, Arman. As for the review, in our case, we initiated the review at the midpoint of our tenure in SDS at the time, in around 2015. And then I think it's a process. So having it so short is also something that might hinder the whole process. So 2 years, I feel is maybe we can reduce to 1.5 or at least 1 year. But it took a time. It took time because in the review team also they have very high level consultants and they have also a lot of additional things going on. But the quality of the team is really important, and I think we had a really good team during the review. Sometimes we found that having a person who is very knowledgeable on issues like access to data, why the statistical office needs this detailed level of data. So we got that support from Gabriel at the time. So when we were dealing with the Inland Revenue Authority, so it was actually very helpful to have this dialogue face to face with the stakeholders. We had different members gathered for different tasks, and having this face-to-face dialogue, it helped as well. I think in our case, maybe we can have, we thought we can have in the mid-year period, and then maybe at the end of the NSTS, we need another review. And for the sectoral review, in our case, there were some separate reviews that were ongoing. For the agriculture sector, there was a separate review. And then later on, we had to do some reviews for other important sectors. So maybe in between, we can have some sector-focused or area-focused reviews. It depends a lot on the country context as well, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shahuda. There is one question for Fono asked by Rike. Of course, she's impressed by the number of projects you're running at the same time. And the question is, how do you cope, prioritize, manage development partners and keep your staff motivated with having so many different activities?
Thank you, Ricky, for that question. Yes, it's very challenging, but I think first, for us, we delegate the responsibilities. We identify the senior staff who can push through the project, and we delegate the responsibilities to specific staff members. And then the second thing that we put in place is to make sure that we have regular meetings on different projects to make sure that we are on target with activities. How we make sure that the staff keep motivated, they are excited if you give them new things. They are bored with old things. So the more projects that they are involved with, the more active they become, because they know that they learn new things. And that's why we also like putting our staff on online trainings, because the more they participate in those trainings, the more they appreciate the use of statistics and linking those statistics to the policies that they are working with. I think that's the idea we are currently using.
Thank you very much, Fono. There is one question from colleagues from Mongolia NSO. I'm not sure which matrix you're referring to. Would you like to take the floor and ask your question? Or you could post it in the chat room. Philip is asking, how is that review complement the NSS assessment in the NSDS elaboration process? And the question is to Shahuda.
Thank you. It helps to identify the issues that needs to be addressed. So in the NSDS, we are able to come up with some activities to address these issues, or look at those what are identified in the review as an issue, For example, even in the case of human resources, we try to do another assessment to see, send a questionnaire asking about the areas of trainings that should be implemented, how to go about this. So it helps in the NSS to come up with the timeline, what we are going to do during the next 5 years, to narrow down to the nitty-gritties, I would say, and to try and cost it and see who is going to do what. So those are some of the broad things that were highlighted. We are trying to address those issues during the longer time period, because some of those issues need a long time to address as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shahuda. I don't see any questions and any hands up. So with that, maybe they can conclude this session and move to the next session. So thank you very much, everyone, for your for very interesting discussion, and thanks especially to Shahuda and Fono for your presentations. The next session will be chaired by my colleague Rike. Rike, over to you.
Thank you very much, Aman, and thanks to Shahuda and Fono for their excellent presentations and really good answers to some of the questions that were posed. I'm waiting for a slide to come up here. Goy, could you share?
Yes, coming.
Okay, thank you very much. And can I just ask everyone to please mute their microphones when they're not speaking? Thank you very much. So we've had a few chief statisticians on the spot, and in this session we'll have a few development partners on the spot. So this is your chance to put those development partners on the spot with very pointed questions. And what we really want to see here is whether the supply of support from development partners meet your demands for strengthening your statistical systems. You only will get information if you ask them. So please start thinking about questions you want to ask. Don't wait until we start asking for questions. Just put them in the chat box and I'll do my best to pick them up as we go along in this session. All questions are valid. The only rule we have in this session is that no one speaks for more than 2 minutes at a time, and that includes me. So I've already started my timer and I can see my time here is running. So what we'll do here is to have a sprint. And can we get the next slide? We have 4 beautiful people volunteering to be on the spot during this session, and you see them here. And I don't have time to fully introduce them all. You've seen 3 faces already in this session. So I'll just introduce the new face here, the beautiful gentleman number 2 from the left. His name is Rajiv Ranjan. He's presenting Paris 21 on this panel, and he's the lead of the innovation team in Paris 21. And we'll first give these 4 people time to warm up. We'll then do a sprint, and then at the end we'll do a cool down. And the first task I have for our panelists or our sprinters here is an elevator speech. So Steve, you all here? My time is up now. So Steve, you have bumped into the chief statistician of a country in an elevator, in a lift, and you now have 2 minutes to convince him or her that ECE is the development partner to work with. Please do go ahead. Your time starts now.
Well, thank you, Rike. Well, I think the first thing I would mention is that ECE is a bit different to the other development partners in this meeting, in that we only have a mandate to provide direct support to the 10 countries that of the ESCAP region that are also ECE members. But having said that, our activities are open to all countries, and many countries in the ESCAP region have been involved in our activities over many years. Korea, Australia, New Zealand, Cambodia, India, China, etc. UNECE activities are very much demand-driven. The agenda is set by the countries, and it's the countries who decide the topics and the priorities and where we put the focus. And perhaps I give, as an example, a fairly small country in our region, Serbia. That's a country that's got a lot more involved in our activities in the last few years, because they feel that when they join ECE activities, they're treated as an equal with the much bigger countries, countries with much greater resources, etc. And they have access to discussions on state-of-the-art developments, ideas, methods, etc., with some of the most advanced national statistical offices in the world. And they say that that's a key motivator for their staff. They can't afford to pay high salaries, which is a common problem for many countries. But by being involved in international activities, as the colleague from Samoa said a few minutes ago, this helps motivate staff, gives them something to focus on, and helps change the culture in a statistical office. And that culture change is absolutely key to modernizing official statistics. So I would say, from that respect, please get involved in UNECE activities, and you're very welcome. Thank you.
Wonderful, Steve. Oops, you just made it before the doors to the elevator closed here. Thank you so much. And I think you've actually done quite a good job of convincing me here. Thank you so much. And it is time to move on to our next sprinter here for the warm-up. Rajiv, you now have 2 minutes to convince a chief statistician that Paris 21 is the organization to work with. Please do go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Rike. So let me make a compelling pitch why you should work with Paris 21. And it starts like this, that data and statistics provide the foundation for decision making, right? To set priorities, target policies and investments, make informed choices to advance sustainable development, and monitor and evaluate progress. Yet, many countries still lack basic quality data and the statistical capabilities to reap the benefits of the new data era. This needs to change now. We must build solid statistical systems that can provide high quality public good data on topics that matter for all citizens in every country. Now, more than ever, the world needs an organization that can help to close the national statistics gap, helping every country develop the strong statistical system necessary to advance sustainable development. That organization is Paris 21. Together with our partners, we have continued to provide national statistical offices, planning and finance ministries, civil society organizations, and others with tools and training to undertake long-term planning and arm them with the knowledge and capacity to build robust, inclusive statistical systems capable of producing timely and high-quality data and analysis that capture the diversity of the population. We have some context-relevant practical solutions to offer. Let's discuss.
Wonderful, Rajiv. Thank you so much. It's amazing how much information one can put into 2 minutes when the clock is ticking. Thank you for that. So we move on to Manila and to ADB. So Ard, please let us know why should a chief statistician and his or her office and organization work with ADB as a development partner. Please go ahead.
Certainly, Ricky. I'll probably start by sharing this nugget of information. So when the Asian Development Bank began its operation in Manila back in the late 1960s, statisticians at the bank already recognized the importance of collecting socioeconomic data for its member countries to inform ADB operations. And since then, we have been closely coordinating with national statistical offices, central banks, ministries of finance, and other government agencies within the national statistical systems. And that provided us the opportunity to learn more about the data systems and identify potential areas that need enhancement. And I'm sharing that information because I wanted to highlight that for 5 decades now, ADB has been a strong supporter of national statistical systems. Then over this period, much progress had been achieved through partnerships with NSS and other development partner institutions. I also want to highlight that the nature of technical assistance that ADB has been providing to our member countries have adopted through the demands of the time. So for instance, when the MDGs were launched, there was a lot of demand for support on strengthening social statistics. And thus, we focused our efforts on this area. Many of our initiatives centered in supporting the compilation, analysis of social statistics. On the other hand, since the SDGs were adopted with significantly more goals, targets, and indicator, it has really become more apparent that solely depending on traditional data sources and collection methods will make monitoring of SDG progress quite challenging. And clearly, there's a need to explore the feasibility of adapting new technologies, innovative data sources, and how this can be integrated into the work program of NSS. And this is the very reason why ADB Statistics and Data Innovation Unit has been scaling up our work on this front.
Oop, are you hearing? The doors are closing, Art.
Thanks. That's the end of my pitch, Ricky. Thank you.
Wonderful, and thanks for taking us down memory lane, a historic overview as well. Wonderful. So, Gemma, it's your chance to convince a chief statistician to work with ESCAP. Please take it away.
Thank you very much, Ricky. And it's wonderful going last so I can adapt my 2-minute speech based on what we've already heard. So 3 points that I'd like to make. The first one is ESCAP, we are here for you. Essentially, we work for you as our colleagues in UNECE do. We're part of the UN development system, and we here in ESCAP are part of your region. So we know the region from as far west of Turkey through to the Pacific, through to the furthest islands of Samoa, south to Australia and New Zealand, and north to Russia. So we know the region and we work for you. The second point I'd like to make is ESCAP puts a lot of focus on what I'd broadly call multiplier effect. And here we really make sure that everything that we work with, every development opportunity that we make has some sort of multiplier effect. As you see at this workshop today, we're sharing experiences from 7 different countries. We make active use of social media, blogs. We reach out to your embassies. We reach out to committees like the UN Statistical Commission. So it's really important for us for every development opportunity that we undertake, that we document and we share the success, your success, and the strengthening you've done to others in our region. Finally, I'd like to say that we here at ESCAP, we are very nice. We're friendly, we're helpful, we're super motivated, we're multilingual, we can adapt to most situations. I like to think of all of us here in ESCAP as people. So you'd be working with a very nice team, very dedicated team, highly motivated, and we really just like working with you and supporting your aspirations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gemma. I'm glad you feel that we are all very nice at ESCAP. So you were also, I mean, I have never seen such discipline from 4 development partners speaking. I'm so impressed with all of you guys. I leave it to the audience to assess whether Gemma managed to beat the boys or not, but I really think you all did wonderfully. And I'm not seeing any questions in the chat yet, so could I just do a little check whether we have an awake audience? Can I see some virtual applause for those 4 elevators pitches? Oh, that's great. That's great to know that you're out there. Wonderful. Okay, can we have the next slide? We are going to introduce the first sprint. And there is probably no surprise by the audience here that the 4 sprints in this session will be one on each of these 4 commitments that we have discussed already quite a number of times in this workshop. I'm just putting here as a backdrop for the conversation, you know, the commitment itself and the tools that have been presented earlier. We are not going to get into details on these. And so first, we have 4 people here. You see them in the corner of the slide. If they don't already have their cameras on, they are all here to respond to your very pointed questions. As I said, everything goes as long as you don't speak for more than 2 minutes. And while you're all starting to type away there, I'm going to put Paris 21 on the spot here. And Rajiv, you know, I look at these tools, and how I first came to know Paris 21 was all your work on the NSDS development. But I'm not seeing any tools here related to the national strategies for development of statistics. Has that gone out of fashion? Is Paris 21 no longer considering that, let's say, foundation of its work? Does it have anything to do with all the efforts to develop this capacity development 4.0 approach that we were all hearing a lot about last year, or what? Am I misunderstanding? Rajiv, please.
No, thanks for Rike for the question. I mean, this is fundamental question for Paris 21. I mean, NSDS and NSDS guidelines are the most relevant tools and frameworks to support the integration and alignment of statistical development with national, regional, and global development agenda. I mean, that's already there. We have updated the NSDS guidelines annually based on current experiences and feedback from users from different continents, changes which are happening in the international agenda. We are taking that into account, and different innovations being developed by practitioners. So it's updating. The latest version of the NSDS guidelines 3.0 were introduced last year. It's a kind of a change which recommends developing relevant NSDS, which are aligned with national development policies and plans, and better respond to data demands. So I wouldn't say that it has gone out of the window and it has been replaced by other complementary initiatives that Paris 21 takes. It's an agile organization. It supports the NSDS process very much through CD 4.0 or capacity development 4.0, as the 4 represents, it's an indication of the new era where there are new players, new data sources, and NSDS planning requires to take those into account. Similarly, ADAPT as a tool is there to help the process using latest technology, such as remote consulting. I mean, these days during COVID times, since we cannot travel, ministries and national statistical offices can interact remotely using the tool.
Okay. There goes the 2 minutes again. Wonderful. Thank you, Rajiv. And I'm very, very happy to hear that this is still part of the foundation of your work. And thanks also for adding these reflections on the new virtual modalities. I'm going to, I'm seeing no one typing in the meeting chat. I'm not seeing anyone raising their hands. So are you out there? Now, okay, while you get typing here, we have a question. Wonderful. Is there a link between EPIC and ADAPT? Now we just heard from Rajiv, which is Paris 21, which is behind the ADAPT tool. So maybe I'll throw this one immediately to Gemma, because ESCAP has developed the EPIC tool. Gemma, over to you. Is there a link between EPIC and ADAPT?
Thank you very much, Rika, and thank you very much for that comment question in the chat. So our colleague Arman's already basically answered this and said they're different purposes, but extremely complementary tools. The EPIC tool was developed essentially to improve the dialogue between the users of statistics and data and the producers of statistics and data. And you saw that in the benefits that were highlighted there from Fono, the chief statistician of Samoa, where this tool really was used as an opportunity to bring together the policy users, the policy people with the data producers at the stats office, to better make sure, to better understand that we're targeting our investments in statistics in the right areas. Now, this tool, to me, is very much about the dialogue rather than the actual tool, but they're very complementary with the ADAPT tool, which is also about data planning and making sure that the data is the data that's needed in the policy processes. So to me, they're extremely complementary. Paris 21, actually Paris 21, the P stands for partnerships. Partnerships for statistics, sorry, Rajiv, I always get it whether it's on or of or whatever, but we here in ESCAP are certainly one of the partners in the Paris 21 partnership, just as Paris 21 are part of the development community here in Asia Pacific. So they are similar tools, but I think they serve different purposes, and it's worth having a look. What are you trying to achieve here? And in particular, the EPIC tool was definitely set up to be a facilitated dialogue, if you like, between the users and producers of statistics, and through that developing policy and integrating it with data. Hopefully that answers your question there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Gemma, and thanks for just repeating, I think, a message that has come through already a few times, both yesterday and today, and that is, if you set out to do something, focus on what you want to do, then start looking, is there a tool around that can help me, meet that particular objective? We talked about it, different data sources. Well, it depends what kind of statistics you actually want to produce. And I think it's a bit thinking the same way around in that sense. What are we after in terms of objective, goal? Then we start looking, what kind of data do we need? What kind of tools? What kind of partners, etc. So thanks very much, Gemma, for being very clear here in your answer. And I was just about to put Steve and ECE on the spot here, and I'm seeing there is actually a question in the chat from Said. Thanks for that. There's a comment here, and that is to Steve and you and ECE. There are remarkable countries in the European region that develop their statistical systems to fully register-based statistics. I think sharing their practical experience and step-by-step implementation is highly beneficial, and how they could actually handle this development, like Denmark, Sweden. I'm very interested in sharing their technical experience and expertise. So Steve, here is a demand. What is the matching supply from ECE here? You have the floor.
Oh, thanks, Rika. Yes, great question. So as the question mentions, we have some countries that are very advanced in register-based statistics, and it's an area that is spreading. We're getting a lot of requests from our countries to help them move towards, for example, a register-based census in the next round of population censuses. In UNECE, we have training on this. We developed a training course which starts right from the very basics of using administrative data and goes right through to a full register-based system to produce census data. And we put this together with Statistics Finland, one of the countries that's most advanced in this area. This is all available on a wiki site that we have, which is about administrative and secondary sources in statistics. It's called Assist. I'll put the link in the chat in a few minutes if you're interested to see that. But there you can see the materials from this training course, really starting from the basics of starting to use administrative data through conducting a population census with administrative registers. But I have to say, it's not a quick process. For Finland, it took over 40 years, start to finish. Learning from their experiences, other countries have cut that down. And I think now most countries are looking at sort of 10 to 20 years to go from zero to register-based. And that is improving all the time as we get more experiences. What I would say, though, to get started, is make sure you have a good national data infrastructure. Make sure you have good civil registration, good registers, and then you can start to build on that. So get involved in government activities to develop administrative data sources and registers. Thank you.
Wonderful, Steve. And yeah, and please do share the links to these resources. There's a lot of very valuable experience to share, and it's also a demand that we are hearing from Asia and the Pacific, from several countries that are very interested in getting this kind of process moving. As you say, it does require a very long time horizon. All right, so we are going to move to the second sprint here. Can we go to the next slide? Commitment B, national monitoring frameworks and indicator set. And I am just trying to see, I am going to put Gemma on the spot here. Gemma, we've had a few questions already in the chat that relate to, well, if one project focuses on one tool, what is the room for flexibility here? We've heard from Jan, there is a project funded by China, which is linked to the national SDG tracker. Well, what if a country wants to be involved in that project, but really prefer a tool developed maybe by another organization? Could ESCAP support them under that particular project, even though they want to go ahead with a tool developed by a partner organization?
Yeah, thank you very much, Rike. And look, this question is a really fundamental one. I'm really quite keen to make sure everyone's clear here. The development community, 4 of which are represented here today, Paris 21, ESCAP, UNECE, and the Asian Development Bank, we're here to work with you. At the end of the day on this issue, we're trying to develop, improve your capacity to have national monetary frameworks and indicator sets that support those. And whatever tool it is that's there, it really doesn't matter. Like we're all here to help you. So we're really quite keen. Obviously, we shared with you all these different tools, but the issue is not the tool. The issue is, what impact are you trying to have? What are you trying to achieve? And in what framework what time frame can you work with? And then we will work with you to work out what might be some tools available and some development partners. So these 3 projects that we've shared with you are being implemented. The lead implementing agency is ESCAP, but we have the development system partners with you today, and more broadly also our colleagues in DESA Stats Division. So in short, Rike, absolutely, if we want to use a different tool, that's no problem. What we're trying to achieve here is stronger national monitoring frameworks, stronger indicator sets, and if a different tool to EPIC is the best one for that, that is not a problem at all. Thanks, Rike.
Wonderful, Gemma, and thanks for the very crystal clear answer here. The idea here is to be very focused on the purpose objective in terms of what part of a statistical system are we after strengthening. Then we figure out what could be tools that could help us, and then we go with that. We are not looking at who developed this, for example. And if some of the tools require support from other experts or partners, then, well, we are all, as you highlighted, members of a partnership, a global partnership of development partners and countries on statistics, and we can join hands in project implementation as well. And this is definitely part of the objectives of the workshop we are organizing now. So I have seen, while you've been talking, a lot of expression of interest on the whole business of using administrative data, and interest specifically from the Maldives, from Nepal. I've seen Steve share the tools, which is great. So, okay, I think it's time to get ADB on the spot here. Art, are you still with us?
Yes, Rike.
Oh, that's just wonderful. So I see here that there's one tool for this particular commitment that has ADB as the developer. Could you explain to us, how can a guidebook on data disaggregation for the Sustainable Development Goals help me as a National Statistical Office build a national monitoring framework?
Yes, thanks a lot, Rike, for giving the opportunity. So I'm sure that most of us appreciate why it is important to have access to granular data, especially in the context of development planning. And there's a wide range of analytical approaches how to do this. So we saw a need to have something that NSS can refer to, a sort of a one-stop reference that provides a good overview of this wide range of analytical tools that can be used to collect, compile, analyze, and disseminate disaggregated data. So our team from ADB partnered with UNSD to come up with this and putting together this practical guidebook on data disaggregation, which we think will be particularly useful in the context of meeting SDGs disaggregated data requirements. So if I may just share, when we were drafting this guidebook, we had noted that there are quite a number of resources, good practices that we should highlight, and that's essentially what this practical guidebook is all about. However, moving forward, it is really meant to be a living document. So as more updated tools and references become available, more good practices need to be showcased, the guidebook will be updated with the hope that it will be a useful reference for delivering high quality, granular data at the most cost-effective approach. Thanks, Ricky.
Thank you very much, Art. And I'm just seeing here a question for you now that you have your floor, and I'll promise to restart the clock when you speak again. It's a question from Ayman, who says, well, how is ADB making use of artificial intelligence in data mapping?
That's a very interesting question. And to be honest with you, Arman, most of our focus now is really more on how to enhance the compilation of some of these official statistics being produced by national statistical systems. But I guess there's a lot of opportunity as well, as you've mentioned, to do data mapping using artificial intelligence. Admittedly, this is not a space where we have really scaled up our efforts, but definitely an area of interest moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Art. I'm just wondering, Steve, you've been quite involved in big data and everything from the very beginning. Any comments from you on artificial intelligence here?
Yes, I was in fact just going to our wiki to find a reference to put in the chat, which I'll do in a few minutes. We just finished a 2-year project on machine learning for official statistics, which was all about sharing state-of-the-art ideas and experiments, etc., between countries. And that's now changed into a machine learning community of practice, which is hosted by the UK Office for National Statistics. Again, this is open to everybody to see what's been done, see what the ideas are, join the group, join the discussions, etc. So I'll put that link in the chat for people to have a look at if you're interested. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Steve. And I see that you seem to be getting a lot of friends out of the chat here today. So that's great. I want to just hear Rajiv or Gemma, any comments on the artificial intelligence topic from you? Rajiv?
Yeah, thanks, Ricky. I think this is something very important these days, especially because of the high cost of data collection at household level. And there are now technologies available to analyze imageries, for example, satellite imageries, using artificial intelligence to come up with enumeration area mapping, and also artificial intelligence use in agriculture surveys and censuses, for example. So I think there is a huge opportunity there to exploit these new technologies, but not only on production side, but also on the usage side. I mean, can these information that we have collected and collated through artificial intelligence be used in helping decision support systems, like predictive decision making work? So yeah, I think there is a potential, and we are kind of exploring this area as well to see how national statistical offices can be supported.
Okay, that sounds good, and thanks for bringing in the user angle as well. Gemma, any comments from you? You are about to start working in Australia. Any news from down under on artificial intelligence?
Well, it's a very good question, Ricky, and I'm actually a little bit more cautious, I have to admit, on the area of artificial and machine learning. And I think in this region of Asia and the Pacific, putting Australia aside for a minute, but for Asia and the Pacific, I think we're seeing a lot of the questions where we're still lacking some foundational infrastructure like statistical business registers, agreements to share even basic administrative data, maybe for civil registration. We've just had in Bhutan have just released their first ever vital statistics report based on civil registration data. So given the role we play in the development system, I really want to acknowledge that we do have some foundational pieces that we still need to work on here in Asia and the Pacific, like business registers, like access to administrative data. We're seeing increasing interest in some forms of big data, like geospatial data, and I'd just like to recognise Rajiv mentioned that there. But I have to admit, I'm still personally, as an official statistician of 30 years, a bit cautious about machine learning and artificial intelligence for official statistics. I think we really need to benefit from work like the community of practice there that Steve's just put in the website. Now, having said that, there is some developed countries in Asia Pacific who may be interested in this topic, and I don't want to take away from that. But if there is interest, we're very happy to again work with, probably working with our development partners like Steve there, like Paris 21 in this area. But let's keep in mind we've got to produce high quality official statistics, and I'm just not sure whether artificial intelligence or machine learning produces replicable, reproducible time series that are the hallmark of our profession. I'm sorry to be a little bit more sanguine on this point. Thank you.
Well, we just had a grown-up voice entering this sprint. Yeah, spoken like a true statistician. Thank you, Gemma. And definitely, as with everything, yeah, we need to keep the antennas out and make sure also that, you know, all different warning signals there are also acted upon and addressed. Yeah, so thanks very much for that. So guys, this was number 2 out of 4 sprints. So you are halfway to the goal post. Let's move to commitment number F. Legislative provisions and institutional mechanisms. And we are talking about these kind of legal basis and institutional basis for taking advantage of new technology, new data, etc. So it's in that context we are discussing legislative provisions and institutional mechanisms, just to make sure everyone now has the wording of these commitments fully there up front in your minds. And while we start getting some questions in, I'll put Steve on the spot here again. Steve and ECE. Now, you know, we see here you have a tool that's the generic law on official statistics, but one could, and I think we all agree that many statistical offices are really hampered by out-of-date legislation, etc., and that something needs to be done. But one could argue that this really is not the business of international development partners. This is national legislation, national institutions. Changing these requires a lot of work, and the criteria for success has as much to do with internal power structures and negotiations. Timing often for political reasons are a very major factor. So why should international development partners get involved in that? Can we really add some value? And so what would be your response for this kind of criticism? Please.
Well, thank you, Rika. So I think really statistical legislation is based in many respects on the framework provided by the fundamental principles of official statistics, which was mentioned in the Maldives presentation earlier. And we have to remember that the fundamental principles have been endorsed unanimously globally at the political level in the UN General Assembly. So we have a basis already for international collaboration on the fundamentals, on the basis really for official statistics. So given that we have this basis from the fundamental principles, this framework for legislation, it becomes a case of how to implement it, how to develop the legislation that will best meet the requirements of the fundamental principles, whilst also looking to the future and allowing statistical officers to develop as the outside world is developing and evolving. And there are many people working on this in many different countries. And our idea was we needed a mechanism to start to share some of those ideas and good practices that are coming out of the work in different countries, so that people are not left in their own corner all trying to reinvent the wheel. And out of that came the generic law, which is a sort of template or an aid memoir. Some countries have more or less copied the generic law for their statistical legislation. Others have used it as inspiration. And we don't mind how you use it. We just hope that it is useful and it helps you to remember all of the things that should be included in statistical legislation and look at some of the wording that others have developed and how they have implemented it. And I think really it shows the power of having an international standard in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And I think we just have an excellent point made by Shahuda that's also backing up some of your reflections here, where she's really pointing out these, you know, persuasive powers that could be strengthened by the involvement of international development partners as well. So thank you so much for those reflections, Steve. So, Gemma, you're up next here. I heard you recently present on this business of legislation, institutional mechanisms, and you were arguing, you know, let's try to look at the institutional setup, look at the MOUs, etc., because really changing the legislation is much more like touching and adjusting some of the hardwires of a system. And you were arguing, saying, well, it would probably be easier and more efficient to focus on these institutional aspects. And we have a few ESCAP tools listed here, which is the Data Integration Guidelines and the NSS Review Tool. Could you tell us all how those tools could help me, if I was in a national statistics office, prioritize and implement institutional mechanisms to take advantage of new data, new IT and other tools? Please.
Thank you very much, Rike. Yes, look, I'm a huge fan of looking firstly at institutional mechanisms that are more in our control as national stats officers, and seeing what we can do to improve our own institutional setting to be able to really modernise our infrastructure. I'm going to refer to what we've already heard yesterday and today. Yesterday we heard from Mongolia, the Chief Statistician, Chairman of Mongolia, that he's basically going to put in place integrated data infrastructure because his politicians and his policy makers are demanding more timely and more granular data. Now, he does not need to change legislation for that. This is an institutional decision by the chairman to invest in a particular area. And the data integration guidelines provide and they're built actually, they leverage the experience from Europe and Steve's work of experience sharing from across our two regions on what other countries have done to be able to get access to data, to integrate that data for lots of different purposes, including more timely and more granular data. And then this morning, we've heard from the Maldives and Shayuda, the Chief Statistician of Shayuda, who shared with her experience of applying the National Statistical System Review Tool. And you'll, on one of your slides, I'm not sure if people noticed it, but Shayuda listed about eight things that this National Statistical System Review Tool identified as areas for improvement. 1 was legislation, 7 were institutional mechanisms. And so here again, this National Statistical Review Tool is a really great way of identifying what can I do what can the Chief Statistician do that's already within her or his control, within her or his mandate, and then what's needed to bring in other parts, particularly your legislative part of your system, to make changes. So those were, I think, the guidelines and the review tool, as well as the others there listed by ADB and UNCE, really are provided to give everybody sharing the experiences across the global statistical community of what is possible to change institutional mechanisms. I would also, sorry, Rico, within my last 10 seconds, just really want to repeat Shayuda's comment there. This workshop and these projects that we're kicking off this year are very much focused on doing exactly what Chief Statistician Maldives has said there, working with you to push and advocate for private sector partners and policymakers to get on board with data sharing for statistical use. And so I'm really quite keen we're all very keen to help you achieve this. Thanks, Rico.
Thanks very much, Gemma. And I noticed this is actually the very first intervention of this panel that went a little bit beyond the 2 minutes. So I just want to repeat how deeply impressed I am with all of you. And Gemma, thanks also for mentioning this. I mean, the fact that, we may know that a piece of legislation needs to be changed should not stop us from moving ahead with a lot of institutional changes meanwhile. So thanks very much for that. Now we have a question that's come in, and I'm going to invite either Art or Rajiv, because you haven't spoken on this third sprint yet. It's another question from Said Fayaz, who asks, well, what sort of legislation is recommended for using social network and private mobile apps data for producing official statistics? Who wants to go? Rajiv, I see you are just warming up there for your third sprint. Please go ahead.
No, thanks, Ricky, and thank you for the question. I remember Gemma was on one of our panels in our annual board meeting, and we had this discussion about the need for statistical legislation, which kind of looks at the data governance in the data ecosystem. And this is something that is really become important during these days, especially when you know that there are new data players in the market, so to say. It's not only National Statistical System, who have the prerogative on the data anymore. So the scope of legislation must take into account this changed reality. So yes, there is a need to look at the statistical laws to take into account the new data players, new data sources, how to utilize the new data such as citizen generated data, for example, or even social media data or mobile phone data. But I think I agree with Gemma here that institutionally we have a lot that we can do, that is on the implementation side of the statistical legislation, which are already in place, which gives enough room for us to kind of exploit the advantages which are present right now. So I think implementation should be stressed as well, not only changes in the existing legislation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Favorative, for those additions, which really complemented very well what we heard, and I think also was in the back of the mind by Said in terms of asking this question. So this was the end of sprint number 3. We did not hear from ADB on this sprint, but I promised to put ADB as the first one on sprint number 4. So could we move here? Expanded use of official statistics. We are talking about advocacy and communication with the purpose of expanding the use of official statistics. We know that this use aspect is very often an Achilles heel of a national statistical system. So this is a commitment that actually puts a very high ambition level here in terms of our mutual and common aims here on strengthening statistical systems. So it's open again for questions now on the use of official statistics. And while you all think and start typing or raising your hand, I'm going to put Art and ADB on the spot. So now Art, well, for those of us who've been working on statistics for some years, including with ADB, we've known ADB much more for work on the production side, very technical data production, analysis, etc. But I noticed that when we look at the tools, and I did a very simple count, this particular commitment is actually where you have the most tools listed for ADB. So what has happened? Have you changed direction in the kind of technical assistance you're providing? Have you gone soft, so to speak? Getting out of the heavy duty technical work and into the realm of communicators, etc. What's going on at ADB Art? Let's hear about that.
That's a good observation, Ricky, and thanks a lot for asking clarification. So first, I want to re-echo what was briefly hinted yesterday, that these tools do not necessarily capture the wide range of statistical capacity building support that ADB has been providing to its member countries over time. However, as you have correctly pointed out, that a number of our more recent technical assistants have really focused on the production side of things, and that aligns with one of our strategic priorities of really pushing for innovation, looking for new ways of doing things by integrating new data sources and adopting new technologies. To some extent, that requires, of course, conducting feasibility and pilot studies in partnership with national statistical systems so we can better learn the technical nuances of what it means to use these new data sources and techniques. And hopefully, if I may allude to the question earlier, by the lessons that we can learn from these pilot studies would really hopefully provide, like telephone companies, other private companies, insights on what kind of what are the incentives for them to share their data sets. But at the same time, we also recognize at ADB that we should be going beyond just beyond these academic exercises. We should also be working together with other development partners in the context of promoting the use of official statistics for development, how to expand its use, and we understand that other development partners like the UN system might have more breadth and leverage on working on this area. So we always at ADB, we always keep our eyes open on the potential collaboration with this development partner so we can really tie up the things that we have been doing on the production side and put that into the bigger context of promoting a good data ecosystem.
Wonderful, Art. I'm very happy that you guys are still producing a lot of the great work I know you for, but also very much appreciate that horizon and perspective you just put on your current and future work on technical assistance. So that certainly put me to ease. I hope that that also goes for our audience today. And I was just about to put Rajiv and Paris 21 here on the spot, but I'm seeing now that there is a question coming in, and that is from Shakur from Afghanistan, who is asking, well, are there some common indicators or standards to differentiate between official and non-official statistics? And given that I had just lined up Rajiv to speak here, I'm going to put you on the spot, Rajiv. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between official and non-official statistics? It's a topic that often comes in when we actually try to communicate with our users. Mm-hmm. Rajiv, no, please.
Thanks. And Shakur, thanks for asking this question. Actually, this has become a relevant question, especially given that we have plenty of data available which are not so-called official statistics, and still they make sense to be used, particularly because producing official statistics could be very expensive in certain instances, and specifically for those indicators for which the alternative data is already available. So there is a need, and this is a very valid need, to distinguish between these two data sets. So, I mean, I'll not give you a theoretical reply about this. I mean, we have done some practical work in Philippines and currently doing something in Africa, in Kenya, where we are trying to see how citizen-generated data can be used for official reporting purposes. And this is a very important development because the effort here is to qualify the data as it is, which is available out there in civil society organizations by filtering it through some sort of acceptance criteria to be used for official reporting, only in the absence of official statistics. Because the data should not go waste. At least you have some idea about what's happening in the phenomena that you want to measure. So I think that is an important consideration. And there are plenty of guidance available from the UN Statistics Division about what should be called official statistics. But here the angle to look at is fitness for purpose, I would say. Is the data fit for measurement? And that's the way to go about treating non-official statistics. Thanks.
Wonderful, Rajiv. And I normally would also, when asked these questions, say, well, if we talk about data, it's not necessarily the same as statistics. I mean, we can use a lot of non-official data and use them to produce something that will become official statistics. So there's also some terminology in here, but thanks very much for getting this very interesting question addressed to some extent. And I just see, Gemma, you shared this handbook that Rajiv also referred to. And Gemma, you were very active actually in developing this handbook as a very active member of the advisory group involved. Do you want to just add a few reflections of your own on this particular topic?
Yeah, thanks very much, Rikke. Yeah, this question of official and non-official statistics has been going around for a while, and it's a very good one. And we are getting greater clarity in the statistical community on this. But I think my reflection is a bit similar to Rajiv's: fitness for purpose. What's it being used for? And the second point is exactly the one you've just made, Rikke. You got to differentiate between data and sources of data, which can be unofficial. Usually the word official broadly relates to government statistics, right? But you can use private sector data, you can use digital data, you can use citizen generated data. the data source is not the issue, but have you applied some professional scientific standards to produce the official statistic? And here, there's fit for purpose. You know, does it comply with the fundamental principles? Does it apply with the national quality assurance frameworks? Has it been produced by somebody in the government sector, not necessarily the National Stats Office, but somebody in the national stats system? So I think there is a lot of guidance there now, Rike, but just please differentiate between the inputs, which is the data, and the outputs, which is the statistics. And we're talking about official statistics, not necessarily official data. Thanks, Rike.
Thank you very much, Gemma. And I was just about to hand that particular topic and question on to ECE and Steve also to reflect on. But then meanwhile, because I know Steve has also worked a lot on this, but just as you were speaking, Gemma, we received a question and that comes from Lei Chan in Cambodia, and it's actually addressed to all speakers, but I'm going to ask Steve to reflect on this because we are almost at the end of our fourth sprint here. So Steve, you are going to get this question from Lei Chan, and he's asking, well, what kind of solution or recommendation could you recommend to a country on the basis of all these guidelines and tools that's been developed to effectively support SDG data, SDG monitoring, and that's taking into account, you know, the existing national data structure and ICT infrastructure, and also given that several countries do have very limited capacity and resources. This is a mouthful, but Steve, you have 2 minutes to try to get your head and the heads of the rest of us around that very large question, please.
Yes, it's certainly a large question. I think many of the international statistical standards and guidelines and tools that have been developed all go into supporting the production of statistics for the SDGs in some way. What I would suggest is to look at a sort of umbrella tool that we created in UNECE a couple of years ago, something called the Roadmap for SDG Statistics. And that covers most of these areas, pulling together ideas, best practices from different countries on how to tackle the different aspects of bringing together data for the SDGs. That roadmap, as I mentioned, was produced a couple of years ago, and at the moment, we're currently revising it. There should be a new version out in the next couple of months, which will build on implementation experiences from countries and will include all sorts of new ideas and information about implementation experiences in the countries. So I would suggest to look at that, and I would suggest to follow the SDG data communities because there's a lot of good information coming from those communities, a lot of good knowledge sharing going on. And there are various resources, too numerous to mention at global and regional levels, but really have a good look at what's available from those, and hopefully you should find at least some inspiration for tackling some of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. And I just to remind everyone here on the call that the tool Steve just referred to, the roadmap, is also available on the website of this workshop, listed as one of the tools under Commitment B, which specifically related to the national indicator frameworks. So Steve, thanks very much. And I think you also made it very clear to all of us that there's probably not one answer to that question that was just asked. And indeed, we could organize several workshops just around that topic if that was what we were doing. But we are now at the end of the sprint, the fourth of 4 sprints. And what we need now is to cool down a bit. This is time for stretching exercises. And for this, I am going to give each of our great panelists here 2 minutes again, and you have the choice either to sum up your takeaway messages from the sprint you've just been through, or try again with an elevator pitch, and we can all see whether this experience has improved your ability for convincing people within 2 minutes. I will give you all again the floor in the same order as the beginning of the sprint. So I will go Steve, Rajiv, Art, and Gemma. All right? Are you ready, Steve, for that final? I can't say final. Are you ready to cool down? That's what I should say.
Yes, I think we've had a great session and lots of good ideas sharing.
Okay,
so
your 2 minutes have started, okay?
Okay, I'm going to do a sort of a mixture of the two things you mentioned, my pitch plus some reflections on the session. So back to what I said at the start, UNECE activities are open to all. We have many of the most advanced national statistical offices in the world working in our region, and you can join them, listen to them, benefit from their experience, and contribute your own ideas as well, because it shouldn't be just a one-way flow. I'd like to mention particularly, we talked a lot about legislation. We recently set up an expert group on modernizing statistical legislation, and that will be having a meeting towards the end of this year, 18th, 19th November. And because that will be almost certainly a virtual or a hybrid meeting, it means it's really open to anybody who wants to join electronically. And we'll be looking at the implementation of the gloss and various other hot topics in legislation like data access, ethics, data governance, stewardship. Well, we have also a group of chief statisticians working on the stewardship issue as well. So really quite a hot topic. But what I would say in conclusion is use the power of international standards and international organizations, because we've heard many times from national statistical offices that if they say something within government circles in the country, they don't always get listened to that much. But if they bring somebody in from outside, so somebody from the UN or another agency, or they show an international standard, that can often carry more weight and can help them get their views taken into account through government. So I think use the power of international standards and international organizations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve, and thanks for just stressing this point, this a reference to something that's internationally agreed. We've had in the chat also during this sprint some comments related, to the power of this declaration, related to the advantages of these NSS reviews that were all linked to the fact that international development partners got involved in that sense. So Steve, wonderful to have you, and a wonderful cool down exercise there from you. I hope you're just sweating, but that your heartbeat is back to normal. And I am now moving on to the next person for a cool down message, and that is Rajiv. Please take it away.
Thanks, Rike. Yeah, this was a wonderful session. Got to speak quite fast and yet tried to pack in as much as possible. But let me cool down by saying that, look, I mean, all solutions and technology platforms can serve the purpose only and only if they are demand driven. That is, they must serve the purpose of the countries, the national statistical offices, and NSS. So, I mean, I want to kind of list 4 items which are also listed on the website of the event, and which Paris 21 is kind of supporting. One is the ADAPT, which is Advanced Data Planning Tool. You take care of all the demanded indicators in one place and then look at what data is available to meet those demands and then find out the data gaps. So this tool is designed in consultation with countries It is currently used in more than 20 countries to come up with data gap assessments, which feeds into the NSTS process. Then the second approach that I want to mention is data flow analysis framework, or DFAF. This has been developed after consultations with countries like Cambodia, Ghana, Thailand National Statistical Office, and also Tunisia. And this is an approach where we are saying that, look, before designing a survey, a dissemination tool, indicated dissemination tool, you need to map the process and understand where the automation or re-engineering is required. So these are some examples. Then the third example is the gender statistics assessment framework, which is again looking at the data from the gender perspective to be included in the NSTS. And finally, the clearinghouse mechanism. We are developing this platform where countries can express their needs of finances, and then we present it in front of the donors and see if there are matchmaking possible.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rajiv. And thanks also for reminding us all that, you know, a workshop like this is an opportunity, of course, for all our wonderful colleagues from national statistical offices to get some information and exchange experiences. But it's certainly also an opportunity for development partners for a reality check. You know, what are we hearing in terms of what's going on in national statistical systems? Double check, are the services we are providing, are they really meeting the demand, the current demand, and not what we all heard 5-10 years ago? So I think that's definitely a takeaway message that I'll also note down. So after you've now, you've sat down, relaxing, we move on to the next message. ADB and Art, please, 2 minutes to you to cool down.
Thanks a lot, Ricky. Earlier, I've started my opening spiel by doing a trip down memory lane, and really it was meant to highlight how ADB has been adapting, how our statistical capacity building assistance has been adapting with how national statistical systems demands also evolve over time. But I want to emphasize that since the first time we provided technical assistance 50 years ago, I think one thing has not changed, and that the fact that ADB has been collaborating very closely with national statistical systems to be able to really understand the strengths and weaknesses within the system and fit where the strategic expertise of our team can complement some of the gaps that we may have noted from the national statistical systems. At this point, the space that we have been working on is really in the area of integrating innovative data sources and new technologies to manage the cost of collecting increasing volumes of data, to make the process more efficient, but at the same time meeting the demands of policymaking. So on that note, we really look forward to hearing more about the specific needs of NSS come the third day of this event. That will be really useful for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Art. And I noticed here that you have still 30 minutes to speak if you wish to, but it's just wonderful. The 2-minute rule doesn't mean we have to speak 2 minutes. Sometimes, you know, if we speak 1 minute, people listen better. So that is just a little note, and that is not an instruction to you, Gemma, but you're up next for cooling down, and you have 2 minutes. Please take it away, Gemma.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ricky. So I'm going to really end on what a fantastic job you've done here today, Ricky, with this sprint. We set Ricky this innovative task of trying to keep all of us down to 2 seconds each, and I think you've done a wonderful job of bringing some light. You've really demonstrated what we're here about at ESCAP, which is about being, you know, helpful, motivated, friendly, innovative, really bringing the development system to you. My key message at the end, I think, is the one that we heard from the chief statistician of Samoa, that really the power of us here in the development system, the power of all that we offer, the benefit to you really depends on you reaching out to us and saying, well, here's the help and here's what we're trying to achieve. We've shown you what can be achieved here, and I really do encourage you. This is about strengthening your system and the foundations of your system. There's a lot of projects out there to help you with data compilation, with compiling, producing methodologies. But here we're trying to make some enduring impact to whether it's institutional arrangements, legal arrangements, trialing different data sources, monitoring frameworks. And so please really think big about an enduring impact at your national level that we, the development system, and these 3 projects that we've introduced you to over this workshop can make a really lasting impact. Because I think if there is impact, then the production of statistics will follow. But what we're trying to do is set you up to be champions, leaders of your statistical system, strengthen your system, and do it in really fun ways with helpful people. Thanks, Rike.
Thank you very much, Gemma. And this is the last time you all hear the annoying tone from my phone here. I promise you that. Gemma, thanks so much. And indeed, yes, the power is in the use we make of each other. Huh?
Yes.
And that's really the best way of mobilizing resources, is to get more partners on board. And that was one of the message we also heard from Fono in Samoa before her team had to say goodnight and leave the workshop for today. Now, left for me is just to thank our excellent 4 sprinters here for your good spirits, for your willingness to answer questions, to be put on the spot. I should say to the audience that it's not that we had a lot of exchanges on, what kind of questions do we want to ask or anything. So thanks again for really being in a good spirit for this new type of panel that hopefully we can have some more of. And thank you very much to the audience. Your questions were just so good and focused the minds of our panelists, as you could see, but certainly also made it so much more fun for me to moderate the session today. So could we just get a little virtual applause here for our excellent sprinters and wonderful audience? I'm just checking whether you are all totally on top of MS Teams by now. Oh yeah, it's looking good. So left for me is to hand over to Arman for the closing for today's session. So Arman, please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Rike and colleagues, for a very interesting session. And now we know very much needed session, and we will have to do more of those type because the discussion was very inspiring. So I'm not going to summarize today, and especially the last session. I think the message was very clear, but I would like to switch basically to the problem solving mode. The next step is our next session, preparation for the next session, which is next Thursday, 20 May. And the session will focus on the national priorities for which the information that you will provide to the online form. You have the QR here, but also you can get the form from the event page. And if you haven't done so yet, please go ahead and fill in this form before the May 18th, and we will use that information to organize the third day of our workshop, which is going to be focused on what kind of problems you want to fix, basically. And if you look at the form, it will you can pick one of the commitments first out of these 4 commitments that we have prioritized for this workshop, and then under the selected commitment, you will be asked to identify very briefly, specify and describe what is the problem in your statistical system that you would like to change or to solve. It could be, for example, my NSO is not engaged in developing monitoring framework for the national plan, or anything like that, right? And then you're asked to again briefly describe what change you would like to see after taking action. In this particular example, maybe your change would be that I would like to see that my NSO jointly with the National Planning Organization develop a monitoring framework for the national plan, or anything like that. So basically, we wanted to forget what tools are available, what agencies are here to support us, what projects are out there. We wanted to focus on what are the issues that we would like to fix in our national statistical systems. And then we will come back together on day 3 and discuss how existing tools, advisory services, technical assistance projects can help to resolve those. And after you identify these 2, you can still select another commitment. You can select 1, 2, 3, or 4 commitments, and for each of those, you will be asked to fill in these 2 boxes. And then we would like you to also specify whether you wanted to make an intervention during the 3rd day or not, or you're available for any kind of clarifications if needed in regards with your request. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for your participation yesterday and today, and look forward to receive your inputs to the form and see you all again next Thursday, 20 May. Thank you very much.